My name is Dr. Alana Reyes, and I'm 33 years old. 5 years ago, my sister told my parents I had been dismissed from law school for academic misconduct. She said I falsified internship records. She said I was under investigation. She said I was spiraling and too ashamed to admit it. She lied. And that single lie cost me my entire family. They cut me off. They blocked my number. They told relatives I needed space. They didn't attend my graduation. They weren't at my wedding. For 5 years, I was no one's daughter. Then last month, my sister was rushed into the emergency room, unconscious, septic, her organs beginning to fail. The ER team paged the attending physician. The doors to Trauma Bay 4 opened, and when my mother saw the name stitched in navy thread across the white coat walking toward her daughter's gurney, she grabbed my father's arm so tightly it left crescent marks in his skin. Before we go any further, subscribe to Women Reddit Stories right now. If stories about family, betrayal, and the kind of justice that doesn't scream, but stands, resonate with you, you're exactly where you need to be. Now let me take you back. Back to the spring of 2018. To a dining room table in Scottsdale, Arizona. To the last time my father ever looked at me with pride. Growing up, there were 2 daughters in the Reyes house, but only one who mattered. My sister Isabel is 4 years older. She has the kind of presence that fills a room before she even speaks. Debate captain. Pageant finalist. Student government president. The girl who could charm a cashier into waiving a late fee and then write a thank you note about it. My parents, Miguel and Teresa Reyes, first-generation immigrants who built a small but respectable real estate brokerage in Scottsdale, valued 2 things above everything else. Reputation. Loyalty. Isabel embodied both. Flawlessly. I was the quiet one. The girl with a stack of case law printouts instead of mascara samples. The one who preferred mock trial to homecoming court. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't dramatic. I was simply inconvenient. There's a difference between being overlooked and being strategically sidelined. By middle school, I understood it without having the language for it. 8th grade. I won the regional civics essay competition, first in the district. Same weekend, Isabel was competing in a statewide leadership summit. Guess which event my parents attended? When I brought home the certificate, my father glanced at it over his reading glasses and said, "That's good, Mija. Keep working hard." He didn't ask what I wrote about. He never did. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself achievement was private. I buried myself in AP government, constitutional history, mock trial tournaments. If I couldn't be the daughter they celebrated, I would become the daughter they couldn't ignore. And for one brief, electric moment, I was. The acceptance email from Stanford Law arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in April. I remember because Isabel was home from Phoenix for dinner. My father read the email twice. "Stanford," he said slowly, like he was tasting something expensive. "That's not just a school. That's Stanford." Then he looked at me. For the first time in my life, he placed his hand on my shoulder and said 5 words I had waited 22 years to hear. "I'm proud of you, Alana." I felt it physically. Like oxygen entering a room that had been sealed for years. My mother called 3 relatives that night. My father poured a glass of wine and told the story twice. Isabel smiled across the table. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. I see that clearly now. Back then, I told myself she was tired. The weeks that followed were strange. Isabel began calling me more. Asking about my housing assignment. My professors. My scholarship package. She asked about the summer internship I had secured with a federal judge in San Francisco. She remembered every detail. I thought she was bonding. I thought, maybe, my success had unlocked something between us. Mutual respect. Sisterhood. I was handing her ammunition. Every name. Every plan. Every vulnerability. And I did it with gratitude. Second year of law school, that's when everything fractured. My closest friend was a woman named Priya Malhotra. Brilliant. Relentless. Raised by a single mother in Oakland. She became my study partner, my sounding board, my sanity during the brutality of 1L and 2L years. In October, Priya's mother suffered a massive stroke. There was no extended family nearby. No one to navigate hospital paperwork, insurance chaos, rehabilitation planning. I requested a formal academic leave for 1 semester. Caregiver designation. All documentation filed. My enrollment status is protected. My return confirmed for spring. Everything is official. Everything is clean. I moved into Priya's apartment temporarily. Drove her mother to speech therapy. Sat in the waiting rooms. Slept on a couch. I called Isabel. I don't know why. Maybe I still believed she was the sister she pretended to be. I explained the leave. The paperwork. I plan to return in January. Her voice was soft. Concerned. Oh, Alana, that's a lot. I won't tell Mom and Dad. They'll just worry. Take care of your friend. 3 days later, she called them. I don't know exactly what she said that night. I wouldn't learn the full extent of the fabrication until years later. But I know the result. The call came at 10:42 p.m. I was sitting on the hospital floor outside the neuro ICU. Priya was asleep inside. My phone lit up. Dad. Is it true? His voice was ice. What is? You dropped out. You falsified your internship record. Isabel showed us the messages. My stomach dropped. What messages? Dad, I'm on approved leave. I can email you the documentation right now. She said you'd say that. That you'd have paperwork ready. My mother got on the line, crying. How could you embarrass us like this? We told everyone about Stanford. I pressed my hand against the cold hospital wall to steady myself. Mom, please listen. I have the dean's contact. I have the registrar. Enough, my father said. Don't call this house again until you're ready to tell the truth. The line went dead. 4 minutes and 19 seconds. That's how long it took for my parents to erase me. 20 minutes later, a text from Isabel. I'm sorry, Alana. I couldn't keep lying for you anymore. She added a broken heart emoji. I had $82 in my checking account. A friend in crisis. And suddenly, no family. Over the next 5 days, I called 17 times. By the 6th call, my father had blocked me. My mother followed 2 days later. I sent 3 emails. One short. One long with attachments, official Stanford leave approval, dean's signature, semester reinstatement confirmation. I included phone numbers. Direct extensions. No response. I mailed a handwritten letter. It came back unopened. Returned to sender. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I called my Aunt Lucia, my father's sister. The only person who had ever looked at me and seen both daughters equally. She called my father that same night. She called me back 30 minutes later. He said you've made your choice. I stopped calling on day 6. Not because I gave up. Because I understood something that had been true my entire life. Isabel didn't create the dynamic. She weaponized it. And I was 700 miles away, with no safety net, and a law degree hanging by a thread that no one back home believed still existed. Priya's mother stabilized by December. I returned to Stanford in January. Finished on time. Graduated with honors. No one from Scottsdale attended. I mailed invitations. They came back. I married Daniel Park 2 years later in a small ceremony in Napa. 30 guests. My law school mentor walked me down the aisle. I sent an invitation home. It returned unopened. 5 years passed. I built a career in emergency medicine law before pivoting to medical school at 28, because trauma systems and policy reform became my obsession after too many hospital nights. Life moves strangely when you're rebuilding without witnesses. And then, last month, at 2:16 a.m., my pager went off. Sepsis alert. Female. 37, hypotensive. Multi-organ distress. ETA 6 minutes. I was the attending physician on call at Desert Valley Medical Center in Phoenix. I walked into Trauma Bay 4. And when I looked down at the intake chart, I saw the name. Isabel Reyes. Emergency contact, Miguel Reyes. For a moment, just one, I wasn't Dr. Alana Reyes. I was 28 years old, standing in a hospital hallway, listening to a dial tone. Then the ambulance doors burst open. And everything collided. Aunt Lucia still calls every Sunday. She's my thin thread back to Scottsdale. I never ask about my parents directly, but I always listen when she volunteers information. Mom and Dad are healthy. The brokerage is stable. Isabel finalized her divorce last year. She's working in medical device sales now. The irony is not lost on me. Last month, Lucia's voice sounded different. Hesitant. Like she was holding something fragile and sharp at the same time. Alana, she said carefully, there's something you should know about Isabel. Something concerning. Before she could finish, my pager went off. Sepsis alert. I told her I'd call her back. I never got the chance. Because what Lucia was trying to tell me was already in motion, speeding north on Route 51 in a silver SUV that was about to run a red light. And within the hour, the thing she had been circling around would be lying in Trauma Bay 4, blood pressure crashing, organs shutting down, my parents standing in the waiting room. I just didn't know it yet. Let me step back for a moment. Because what Isabel did wasn't a single lie. It was a sustained operation. Lucia fed me pieces over the years, reluctantly, cautiously, like she was dismantling a bomb one wire at a time. For 5 years, Isabel maintained the story. At every Thanksgiving. Every birthday. Every church gathering. She's struggling, she would say softly. It's complicated. She told our grandmother I had lost my scholarship. She told cousins I was on academic probation. She told family friends I had burned bridges at Stanford. And she didn't stop there. She told my parents that I refused to answer her calls. That she had tried, repeatedly, to reconcile, but I had cut her off. She inverted the narrative completely. Meanwhile, I was finishing my degree. Sitting at the bar. Taking night classes in biology. Preparing for the MCAT. Applying to medical school at 27. The genius of it, and I use that word with disgust, was that Isabel didn't need my parents to forget me. She needed them to believe I had abandoned them. That way, their silence felt justified. Their grief became proof. And she remained what she had always been, the loyal daughter. The stable one. The one who stayed. 2 years ago, Daniel told me something he had been holding back. We were sitting at our kitchen island in Phoenix. Early morning light, coffee between us. There's something I didn't tell you, he said carefully. I didn't want to upset you. 2 years earlier, someone had contacted the medical admissions office at the University of Arizona, anonymously, asking whether my acceptance had been conditional. Whether there had been any disciplinary flags in my prior academic history. Daniel had a colleague in compliance who quietly traced the inquiry. The IP address came back to Scottsdale. To a residential neighborhood 3 streets away from my parents' house. She was looking for something, I said. Daniel nodded. Anything she could use. That's when I understood. Isabel wasn't maintaining a lie. She was reinforcing infrastructure. Holiday by holiday. Rumor by rumor. Inquiry by inquiry. An architecture of deception. And then came 2:16 a.m. The pager dragged me out of sleep. Daniel stirred beside me. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint desert wind outside. Sepsis alert. Female. 37, hypotensive. Multi-organ distress. ETA 6 minutes. I was dressed in 4 minutes. Driving at 7. Phoenix at 2:30 a.m. is its own kind of quiet, flat, warm, endless. In the car, I ran through the likely scenario. Sepsis. Possible perforated bowel. Delayed infection. Kidney involvement. Aggressive fluids. Broad-spectrum antibiotics. Potential surgical consult. Routine. Brutal. Urgent. I badged through the ambulance entrance at Desert Valley Medical Center and walked toward Trauma Bay 4. My team was already assembling. 2 residents. Charge nurse. Respiratory on standby. I picked up the intake tablet from the nurse's station and swiped to the patient chart. Patient, Isabel Reyes. DOB, March 22. Emergency contact, Miguel Reyes. I stopped walking. The sounds of the ER, the monitors, the overhead announcements, the squeak of rubber soles on tile, receded. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, I wasn't an attending physician. I was 28 years old, standing outside a hospital room in Palo Alto, listening to my father tell me not to call home again. Dr. Reyes, my charge nurse, Tasha, said beside me. You good? I set the tablet down. I'm fine. Prep Bay 4. Page Dr. Ahmed as backup. I want him looped in. The ambulance doors flew open moments later. Isabel was strapped to the gurney, oxygen mask fogging with shallow breaths. Skin pale. Lips cracked. For lines running wide. The paramedics rattled off vitals. BP 78/40. Heart rate 132. Suspected septic shock. Possible abdominal source. Behind them, pushing past the triage line. My parents. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. Hair thinner. Face drawn tight. She was in sweatpants and a cardigan thrown over a nightgown. My father's expression was something I hadn't seen before. Fear. That's my daughter, he said to no one in particular. Where's the doctor? I need the doctor in charge. Tasha stepped in front of them. Sir, the attending is here. We need you to wait in the family area. The attending? My father snapped. Get them. Tasha glanced over her shoulder toward Trauma Bay 4. Her eyes found me. She read my badge. Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. Not now. My parents were guided down the corridor. As they passed the glass partition, I heard my father say something that landed like a stone in my chest. She's all we have. All we have. As if I had evaporated. As if 5 years had erased my existence. I stepped into the scrub room and turned the faucet on. 30 seconds. That's all I gave myself. The stainless steel mirror distorted my reflection slightly. White coat. Badge. Hair pulled back. Dr. Alana Reyes. MD. The daughter who had been removed from the family tree. Now being asked to keep its remaining branch alive. For a fraction of a second, I considered stepping aside. Calling Dr. Ahmed to lead. Letting my parents owe their daughter's survival to someone else. Cleaner. Simpler. But Isabel was in septic shock. She would not survive the next hour without decisive intervention. And I was the most experienced physician in that trauma bay. I picked up my phone and called Ahmed directly. Conflict of interest, I said calmly. Patient is my sister. I'm disclosing and documenting. If my judgment wavers, you take over immediately. Understood, he replied. By the book. Always by the book. Then I pushed through the doors. Isabel lay on the bed, barely conscious. For a moment, she wasn't the architect of my isolation. She was a body in crisis. And that was how I needed her to remain. Let's move, I said. Blood cultures. Pressers ready. Get surgery on standby. The room shifted into motion. And outside, in a waiting room 40 feet away, my parents were about to meet the one truth they had spent 5 years refusing to verify. And this time, it wasn't arriving in an email. It was wearing a white coat. The initial labs came back fast. Lactate critically elevated. White count through the roof. Creatinine climbing. Blood pressure is unstable despite fluids. Septic shock, confirmed. Source? Dr. Ahmed asked quietly on my shoulder. CT abdomen, stat, I said. Prep for possible exploratory. The scan took 7 minutes. It felt like 70. Perforated appendix. Delayed rupture. Infection had been spreading for hours, maybe longer. Peritonitis setting in. Systemic collapse following close behind. She waited too long, Ahmed murmured. Yes. She always waited too long. For accountability. For honesty. For consequences. We moved her into the OR within 12 minutes. As anesthesia intubated, I caught a glimpse of her face under the harsh surgical lights. Thinner than I remembered. Lines around her mouth. The gloss of performance stripped away by pain. For 3 seconds, she wasn't my sister. She was a patient. That distinction mattered. Incision, I said. The first cut is always the hardest. After that, training takes over. We opened her abdomen. The smell of infection hit immediately, sharp, unmistakable. The rupture was clear. Pus pooled where it shouldn't exist. Tissue inflamed. Damage spreading. We sucked. Irrigated. Isolated. Pressure dropping, anesthesia called. I know, I replied. Push another unit. My hands moved steadily. Controlled. Decisive. I didn't speak unless necessary. Clamp. Suction. Irrigate. Suture. Ahmed assisted without comment. The residents watched closely. They always did during complicated cases. 3 hours and 12 minutes. That's how long it took to remove the ruptured appendix, clean the abdominal cavity, stabilize her vitals, and close. At 6:03 a.m., I placed the final stitch. Blood pressure rising. Kidneys responding. She was alive. Ahmed lowered his mask. That was clean, he said quietly. You want me to update the family? I peeled off my gloves, dropped them into the bin. No, I said. This one's mine. The scrub room mirror caught me again. Same face. Same white coat. But something had shifted. 5 years ago, I was the daughter who begged to be heard. Now I was the physician who had just pulled their only remaining daughter back from death. Those two realities were about to collide. The hallway to the waiting room felt longer than it ever had. Fluorescent lights. Early morning quiet. 2 other families scattered in corners. A television murmuring local news no one was watching. My parents sat rigid in the center row. My father stood the moment the doors opened. Doctor, he said urgently. Is she? He stopped. His eyes dropped to my badge. Then back to my face. Then to the badge again. Recognition moved through him physically. Like a tremor traveling up his spine. My mother looked up half a second later. Her hand flew to her mouth. 5 seconds. 5 years contained inside 5 seconds. I spoke first. Mr. and Mrs. Reyes, I said evenly. I'm Dr. Reyes, attending physician in your daughter's case. Not mom. Not dad. Your daughter suffered a ruptured appendix that progressed to septic shock. We performed emergency surgery. The infection was extensive, but she is stable. She's in the ICU. You'll be able to see her in about 45 minutes. Mr. and Mrs. I watched that land. My mother stood abruptly, tears spilling down her face. Alana. I took half a step back. Polite. Clear. Unmistakable. Her hands froze mid-air before lowering slowly. You're a doctor, my father said, voice cracking on the last word. I am. At this hospital? I am. But Isabel said. I tilted my head slightly. What exactly did Isabel say? Silence. The machinery in his mind was grinding, recalibrating. She told us you left school, my mother whispered. That you were struggling. I graduated from Stanford Law. Passed the bar. Went to medical school at 28. Completed residency here 3 years ago. I've been attending for 2. The words were not sharp. They didn't need to be. Facts rarely require volume. My father's jaw tightened. She showed us messages, he said weakly. Did you verify them? He didn't answer. Did you call the dean? The registrar? The hospital? I continued, still calm. My mother's shoulders shook. She said you didn't want us involved. I called 17 times in 5 days, I said. I emailed documentation. I mailed a letter. It came back unopened. Behind me, I could feel nurses watching. Residents pretending not to. My father attempted to regain footing. This isn't the time. I just spent 3 hours keeping your daughter alive, I said, voice steady. I'm aware of what time it is. He had nothing. For the first time in my life, my father, who always had a decree ready, had nothing. My mother gripped the back of a chair. The letters, she whispered. You really sent them? Yes. Her breathing grew uneven. I recognized your handwriting when it came back, I added quietly. My father stared at the floor. I asked Aunt Lucia to intervene, I said. You told her to stay out of it. The silence between us thickened. Then Tasha appeared on my shoulder. Doctor, ICU's ready for family at 10. I nodded. Thank you. I turned back to my parents. You'll see her shortly. She'll recover. My father swallowed hard. Alana. I met his eyes. For 5 years, I had rehearsed this moment in my head. In the shower. In the car. In the quiet before sleep. I never imagined it happening in scrubs under fluorescent lights. Yes. He looked smaller somehow. We thought you disappeared. I didn't disappear, I said. You stopped looking. My mother broke. Not dramatic sobbing. Not wailing. Just the sound of something collapsing inward. We believed her, she whispered. Yes, I said. You did. No accusation. Just truth. And through the ICU hallway doors, down a corridor that smelled faintly of antiseptic and early morning coffee, Isabel was beginning to wake up. And the next collision was about to begin. 4 hours later, ICU room 12. The morning sun was pushing through the narrow blinds in thin, pale strips. Machines hummed in steady rhythm. The ventilator had been removed, replaced by oxygen through a nasal cannula. Fluids still ran through 2-4 lines. A central line taped carefully at her collarbone. Isabel's eyes fluttered open slowly. Disoriented first. Then focused. She stared at the ceiling tiles as if they might rearrange themselves into something familiar. Her gaze drifted sideways. Landed on the monitor. Then the 4-pole. Then me. I was standing at the foot of the bed reviewing her chart. She squinted. Her eyes moved to my badge. Read it. Looked back at my face. Looked at the badge again. The color drained from her skin in a way I had only ever seen in patients who had just heard a diagnosis they weren't prepared for. "Alana," she rasped. "Good morning," I said evenly. "I'm your attending physician. You experienced septic shock due to a ruptured appendix. Surgery was successful. You're stable." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You're a doctor?" "Yes." "At this hospital?" "Yes." "How long?" 3 years. Silence. You can almost see cognition recalibrating in real time when someone's internal narrative collapses. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then something sharper. Calculation. Even under morphine, even stitched, closed and stabilized, Isabel was assessing angles. "I can explain," she whispered. "You don't need to explain anything to me," I said calmly. I gestured subtly toward the hallway. "You need to explain it to them." My parents were standing just beyond the glass door, faces drawn tight with sleeplessness. I checked her incision. Monitored output. Adjusted orders. Routine. Precise. Impersonal. I didn't linger. I didn't offer comfort. When I left the room, I didn't close the door all the way. And I didn't need to hear what followed. The ICU floor heard it. The moment my parents stepped inside, Isabel began crying. Not the quiet, exhausted tears of someone recovering from trauma. Big, heaving sobs that pulled at sutures and caused her heart monitor to spike. "Mom, Dad, I didn't mean for it to get this bad," she gasped. My father's voice was controlled, but barely. "She's the attending physician." "I didn't know," Isabel said quickly. "She must have." "She said she called 17 times, my mother interrupted, voice thin and trembling. "She said she emailed documents. She mailed letters." "She exaggerates," Isabel said weakly. "She asked Lucia to intervene," my father said. "You told us Lucia was stirring drama." Silence. "Is that true?" my mother asked. Another pause. Then the pivot. Classic Isabel. "She cut us off," she said. "I was protecting you." She was ashamed. "We blocked her number," my father replied quietly. The monitor beeped steadily. The 4-pump clicked. For perhaps the first time in her adult life, Isabel had no script that would land. And then, at 9:20 a.m., Aunt Lucia walked into ICU room 12. I had called her after surgery. Not to weaponize her. Not to stage a reckoning. But because Isabel was her niece too. Lucia did not sit. She did not hug anyone. She stood at the foot of the bed and said, "I have waited 5 years for this conversation." She pulled out her phone. I labeled this folder Alana documentation. She began swiping. Screenshots of my emails. Timestamped. Attachments visible. Stanford letterhead. Dean's signature. Registrar seal. She handed the phone to my mother. "And this," she said, swiping again, "is a message Isabel sent me 4 years ago." She read it aloud. "Don't tell Mom and Dad about Alana's residency. It will only confuse them. They're finally at peace." The room went still. Isabel stared at the ceiling. No tears now. No performance. Just exposure. Lucia's voice remained steady. "You told me to keep quiet for the family's sake," she said to Isabel. "But this family hasn't had peace. It's had a blackout." Then she turned to my parents. "And you too let it happen. Not because you didn't love Alana. But because loving Isabel was easier." No one argued. There was nothing left to argue. My mother scrolled through my emails one by one. Her lips moved as she read. She stopped on the final one, the one I sent the night before my medical school graduation. "Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I graduate tomorrow. I wish you were here. I never stopped being your daughter. My mother folded forward in the chair. Not crying loudly. Just folding. As if gravity had suddenly doubled. My father turned toward the window. His shoulders began to shake. Lucia told me later it was the first time she had ever seen her brother cry. Not at their father's funeral. Not when the business nearly collapsed during the recession. Not ever. He cried now. Quietly. Back turned. Because knowing the truth and knowing what to do with it are two different burdens. I returned to the ICU that afternoon at the end of my shift. 21 hours awake. My parents were still there. My mother stood the moment I entered. "Alana," she said, voice raw. "We're so sorry." I raised a hand gently. "I hear that," I said. "And I believe you're sorry." They both looked startled. "But sorry is a starting point," I continued. "Not an ending." My father swallowed. "We want to fix this." "Then understand something," I said evenly. "I'm not the daughter who begged you to listen 5 years ago. I built a life without you. If you want to be part of it now, it will be on my terms." My father opened his mouth. Closed it. Nodded once. Small. Devastated. I looked at Isabel. Her eyes were open. Watching. "When you're fully recovered," I said, "we'll have a conversation. A real one. But not today. Today, you're my patient." I left. Spine straight. Measured steps. 2 weeks later, Isabel was discharged. 3 weeks after that, I chose the location. A quiet cafe in Tempe. Neutral ground. Daniel came with me, sitting at a separate table near the window, reviewing files but present. Isabel walked in thinner than before. Surgery and humiliation have similar effects on appetite. She sat down. Hands wrapped around a cup she didn't drink. I didn't waste time. "I'm not going to yell," I said. "I'm not going to relive every lie. You know what you did." Silence. "What I want to know," I continued, "is why." The cafe hummed around us. Then she said it. "Because you were becoming everything I wasn't." I let that sit. "That's honest," I said. "First honest thing you've said in years." She nodded slowly. "I couldn't handle it," she added. "You were leaving. You were going to outgrow all of us." "I didn't leave," I said. "You told them I did." She looked down. "I also called Stanford twice," she admitted quietly. "I tried to get them to revoke your leave. I said you falsified caregiver documents." The air felt thinner. "They didn't believe me." "They believed the truth," I replied. I leaned back slightly. "I'm not cutting you out of my life," I said finally. "But there will be conditions." Her eyes flicked up. "You will send a written correction to every family member you misled. Every cousin. Every aunt. Every family friend. Full admission. No spin." She nodded. "In writing," I added. "Group email. All of them." She nodded again. "And you'll attend therapy." "I already started," she said quietly. I studied her face. For the first time in my memory, there was no performance there. Just fatigue. Possibly regret. Maybe. "I don't know if I forgive you," I said. "That's not today's decision. But I expect consistency." She nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't redirect. That was new. And consistency, not apologies, would determine what happened next. Isabel sent the email on a Wednesday night at 8:47 p.m. Lucia confirmed delivery to all 43 addresses in the extended Reyes family thread. I didn't open it right away. Daniel placed my laptop on the kitchen table the next morning with a cup of coffee beside it. He didn't say anything. He just squeezed my shoulder and stepped back. He understands when silence is protection. The email was 3 paragraphs. No embellishment. No sentimental language. She stated that she lied about my academic status. That she fabricated messages. That she maintained the deception for 5 years. That she discouraged our parents from verifying the truth. That I never abandoned the family. That she made sure they believed I did. It ended with, "I accept full responsibility for the damage this caused." No broken heart emoji. No qualifiers. Just the facts. The responses came slowly. Aunt Marisol replied first. "I don't know what to say." Uncle Hector sent a single line. "This is deeply disappointing." Cousin Elena wrote privately to me. "I told my roommates you were in rehab. I am so sorry." I read that twice. Our grandmother, Abuela Sofia, 86 years old and sharper than anyone gives her credit for, called me directly. "Alana," she said, voice thin but steady. "I am old, but I am not foolish. I was misled. Forgive me." "There's nothing to forgive," I told her. "You were lied to." Silence can be louder than outrage. There was no dramatic family rupture. No collective excommunication. But something shifted. Invitations to Isabel slowed. Group chats became quieter when she entered. The social capital she had accumulated for 37 years began to erode. No one announced consequences. They just stopped believing her. For someone whose identity had always depended on credibility, that was a harsher punishment than shouting ever could be. My parents began therapy in February. A counselor in North Scottsdale named Dr. Elena Varga. Lucia gave me the summary, sparingly. My mother took to it immediately. Apparently, the first session ended with her crying for nearly 40 minutes after Dr. Varga named something she had never articulated. Conflict avoidance through favoritism. My mother had chosen harmony over fairness. Peace over equity. Silence over defense. And once someone put language to that, it unraveled her. My father resisted at first. He sat rigid in the chair. Short answers. Crossed arms. Dr. Varga reportedly told him something that landed like a weight. "You valued certainty more than truth." Lucia said he didn't argue. He just nodded once. That was new. 3 weeks into therapy, my mother mailed me a letter. Handwritten. On heavy cream paper she used to reserve for holiday cards. "I failed you," she wrote. "Not just when I believed Isabel. But every time I let your father's final word end a conversation. Every time I saw you standing quietly in the doorway and told myself you were fine because you didn't demand attention." She acknowledged things I hadn't even realized I was carrying. "I convinced myself you were strong enough not to need defending. That was cowardice disguised as confidence." I read it twice. Didn't cry. I opened the drawer in our kitchen where I keep the items that mark turning points. Priya's mother's hospital bracelet from the week she stabilized. The unopened wedding invitation returned to sender. The letter from Stanford confirming my graduation. And now, my mother's apology. Same drawer. Different section. Progress doesn't erase history. It reorganizes it. Isabel continued therapy independently. We met for coffee twice more over the next month. The second meeting was stiff. Transactional. The third was quieter. She didn't lead with an apology. She said something else. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I don't even know if I deserve it. But I'm trying to understand why I needed to win at something that wasn't a competition." I studied her face. No audience. No dramatic pauses. Just exhaustion. "Show me," I said. Words are easy in this family. They always have been. She nodded. No argument. No defensiveness. That was still unfamiliar territory. Do I trust her? Honestly, I don't know. I've spent most of my life decoding Isabel's performances. It's hard to distinguish sincerity from strategy when you've grown up with both. But I believe in the possibility of behavioral change. And right now, possibility is enough. She carries my surgical scar on her abdomen. A thin, vertical line just left of center. Every morning when she gets dressed, she sees it. A permanent reminder that the sister she tried to erase chose the oath over the resentment. I carry something less visible. 5 years of silence lodged somewhere behind my ribs. It doesn't ache the way it used to. But it exists. We are, in a strange and imperfect way, even. Not balanced. Not restored. But leveled. And leveling is a start. 1 month after the ICU incident, the hospital scheduled its annual Clinical Excellence Gala. 200 guests in a ballroom at the Arizona Biltmore. Department heads. Donors. Senior physicians. Board members. Crystal glasses. Soft lighting. A string quartet in the corner playing something elegant that no one fully listened to. I wore a simple navy dress. Daniel looked like he had been designed specifically for a tailored suit. Dr. Ahmed sat to my right, arms folded, observing everything the way he always does. The MC stepped to the podium. This year's Clinical Excellence Award goes to a physician whose composure under pressure and commitment to patient-centered care have set a new standard for Desert Valley Medical Center. A pause. Dr. Ilana Reyes. Applause. Then standing applause from the trauma team. I walked to the stage. Spotlight warm. Podium steady beneath my hands. I kept my speech short. 5 years ago, I said, I nearly left the path I'm standing on now. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I believed I had lost the people I needed most. I let the room settle. What I learned is that the people who sustain you aren't always the ones you're born to. Sometimes they're the ones who choose you. I looked at Daniel. At Ahmed. At my residents. Then I looked toward the back of the ballroom. 2 seats. My parents. My mother in a soft gray dress she likely bought specifically for tonight. My father in a navy tie he probably hated. Sitting upright. Watching. Expressions complicated. Grief and pride occupying the same space. And sometimes, I continued, the people you're born to find their way back. Late. But willing. My mother covered her mouth. My father stood. The applause swelled again. Not triumphant. Not vindictive. Just acknowledgement. After the gala, my father approached Daniel near the coat check. He stood there for a moment before speaking. I owe you an apology, he said. I should have been the one standing beside her. Daniel extended his hand. With respect, sir, he replied calmly, you should have been a lot of things. But we're here now. They shook hands. My father didn't let go immediately. And for the first time in 5 years, I saw him not as an authority, but as a man reckoning with himself. 3 weeks after the gala, my parents came to Phoenix for the first time. They didn't announce it dramatically. No emotional phone call. No rehearsed speech. My mother texted the night before. Your father and I will be in town tomorrow. If you're open to it, we'd like to see your home. Open to it. The phrasing mattered. They arrived mid-morning on a Sunday. The desert light was soft, filtered through a thin layer of winter haze. Daniel was grinding coffee beans. I was slicing strawberries for French toast. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door. My mother stood there holding a tin of homemade empanadas. The kind she used to make for Isabel's debate competitions. Never for my mock trials. My father stood beside her holding a grocery bag awkwardly, orange juice, A loaf of bread, something he clearly grabbed at the last minute so he wouldn't arrive empty-handed. "Hi," my mother said. "Hi," I replied. There was a beat. Then I stepped aside. "Come in. Coffee's almost ready." My father paused just inside the doorway and looked around. Not critically. Not evaluating. Observing. The framed degrees on the wall. The bookshelf lined with medical journals and old law textbooks. The wedding photo from Napa. He stood in my kitchen like a man entering a museum exhibit about a life he had missed. "Can I help with anything?" he asked. The question hung in the air. My father, 63 years old, asking permission to be useful. "You can set the table," I said. He nodded and moved toward the cabinet I pointed to. He took out 4 plates. Paused. Looked at me. "4?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "4." He set them down carefully. One by one. Like they might crack if handled roughly. Daniel handed him a mug of coffee. My mother came up behind me at the stove. She didn't say anything at first. She just wrapped her arms around me. Not tightly. Not dramatically. Just steady. Her forehead rested lightly against my shoulder. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. It was quiet. And quiet felt honest. We ate breakfast at that table. Conversation was tentative at first. Surface-level topics. Weather. Traffic. Hospital schedules. But then my father cleared his throat. "I started reading about trauma systems," he said. "After the gala. I didn't realize how much coordination it requires." I looked at him. He wasn't performing. He had actually done research. "It's complex," I said. "But worth it." He nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand that about a lot of things." My mother reached for my hand across the table. "I should have fought for you," she said softly. It wasn't a grand declaration. It was simple. Accurate. And unpolished. "I know," I said. And I did. After breakfast, my father asked if he could see my office at the hospital. He stood outside my door reading the nameplate. Dr. Alana Reyes, MD. His fingers brushed lightly over the engraving. "I should have verified," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. We didn't need to unpack it further in that hallway. Accountability doesn't require theatrics. It requires consistency. And consistency is slow. Isabel and I continued meeting once a month. Short meetings. Neutral locations. Therapy had stripped some of her sharp edges. Or maybe she had just grown tired of carrying them. During our 4th meeting, she said something that surprised me. "I don't think I hated you," she said. "I think I hated that I couldn't control the narrative once you started building one of your own." That felt closer to truth than anything else she had offered. Control had always been her currency. Attention her oxygen. My independence threatened both. "I'm not interested in winning anymore," she said quietly. "I'm not competing," I replied. She nodded. "I know. Trust is not restored by confession. It's rebuilt by repetition." She corrected stories in person when relatives brought them up. Lucia confirmed it. She didn't defend herself. She didn't minimize. She simply said, "I lied. It was wrong." That matters. But trust accrues slowly. Like interest. My parents remained in therapy. My father still struggled with vulnerability. But he showed up. Week after week. My mother stopped interrupting me mid-sentence during phone calls. It seems small. It isn't. One evening, a few months later, Daniel and I hosted dinner. My parents came. Isabel came too. The atmosphere was cautious but civil. At one point, my father raised his glass. I was wrong, he said plainly. And I'm learning how not to be. No speech. No defense. Just ownership. Isabel looked down at her plate. My mother squeezed my hand under the table. And for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar in their presence. Not obligation. Not tension. Not resentment. Possibility. Later that night, after everyone left, Daniel and I stood in the kitchen cleaning up. "You okay?" he asked. I considered the question carefully. "I'm not healed," I said. "But I'm not waiting anymore." Waiting had defined 5 years of my life. Waiting for acknowledgement. Waiting for apology. Waiting to be seen. Now, the door wasn't locked. But I held the handle. And that distinction changed everything. Reconciliation isn't a single moment. It's a series of choices. Repeated. Sometimes awkwardly. Sometimes imperfectly. But deliberately. I don't know what the next 5 years will look like. I don't know if Isabel will remain consistent. I don't know if my parents will relapse into old dynamics under stress. What I know is this. The truth surfaced. Not because I forced it. Not because I sought revenge. But because I built a life solid enough that when it arrived, it had somewhere to stand. And that is a different kind of justice. Not loud. Not explosive. Structural. And structures, when rebuilt correctly, hold. 6 months after that first Sunday breakfast, my mother asked if she could bring over old photo albums. "Only if you're comfortable," she added quickly. That phrase still catches me off guard. Only if you're comfortable. We sat at my dining table with 3 thick albums between us. Elementary school plays. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. Page after page of Isabel in the center. Smiling. Crowned. Celebrated. Then occasionally, me. At the edge of the frame. Half turned. Sometimes cropped. Sometimes not photographed at all. My mother traced one picture with her finger. "You were so quiet," she said. "I wasn't quiet," I replied gently. "I was careful." She swallowed. "There's a difference. We didn't try to rewrite those years. We just acknowledged them. And acknowledgement, I've learned, is heavier than apology." Isabel came by that evening. She stood behind my chair looking at the albums. "There should have been more of you," she said softly. "Yes," I said. "There should have been." No one argued. No one defended. We let the truth sit between us without rushing to decorate it. That's what healing actually looks like. Not a dramatic embrace. Not a montage. Just sustained, uncomfortable honesty. A month later, I received a message from one of my residents. "Dr. Reyes," it read, "thank you for the way you handled that septic case. You stayed calm under personal pressure." That meant something. I stared at the message longer than I expected. Because that was the real shift. 5 years ago, I would have wanted my parents to see that text. To validate it. To confirm it meant I was enough. Now, I read it. I appreciated it. And I didn't feel the need to forward it to anyone. That's the quiet difference between seeking validation and standing in self-knowledge. Isabel's scar faded from red to pale pink over the summer. At a family barbecue in Scottsdale, my first in 5 years, she pulled me aside briefly. "It's healing well," she said, tapping her abdomen lightly. "Good," I replied. She hesitated. "I see it every day." "I know." Neither of us elaborated. We didn't need to. Some reminders don't require commentary. My father, at that same barbecue, stood beside me while I helped my uncle set up folding chairs. He cleared his throat. "I thought protecting the family meant protecting the image," he said quietly. "I didn't realize it meant protecting the truth." "That's a common mistake," I said. He nodded. I won't make it again. Consistency. That's what matters. Later that night, my mother hugged me goodbye and whispered, "Thank you for letting us try." Letting. That word matters too. Because that's what it is now. Not entitlement. Permission. And permission can be revoked if respect disappears. I sit in my office at Desert Valley Medical Center some evenings after rounds. The hallway quiet. The monitors distant. My nameplate fixed to the door. Dr. Alana Reyes. Not because I need to see it, but because the residents do. On my desk is a framed wedding photo. Daniel, smiling easily. My mentor beside him. Lucia in the second row. No parents in that frame. But next to it now is a newer photo. Taken on my front porch 2 months ago. My parents standing beside me. Awkward. Smiling a little too hard. Trying. That's the word that defines this chapter. Trying. If you're listening to this story and you recognize yourself in it, whether you were the one silenced or the one who chose silence, I want you to hear something clearly. The truth doesn't expire. It may take 5 days. It may take 5 years. But it has a patient way of arriving exactly when it needs to. You can't outrun it. And you can't permanently bury it beneath comfort. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't orchestrate exposure. I became someone who didn't need either. And that turned out to be far more disruptive than any confrontation I could have staged. Sunday morning. Early February. Light rain tapping softly against the kitchen window. Daniel humming off-key while he makes coffee. I'm flipping pancakes. The doorbell rings. I open it. My parents stand there. No announcement. No dramatic expression. My father is holding a bag of fresh oranges from a roadside stand. My mother has a small bouquet of grocery store flowers. "Hi," she says. "Hi," I reply. "Breakfast?" I ask. They nod. Inside, my father looks toward the cabinet instinctively. "4?" he asks again. "4," I confirm. He sets the plates down carefully. Daniel hands him coffee. My mother stands beside me at the stove. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't justify. She just stays. The rain continues outside. The coffee steams. The plates sit evenly spaced. 4. Not because the past disappeared. Not because trust is fully restored. But because the door is open. And I am the one holding it. If this story resonated with you, if it made you reflect on your own family, your own boundaries, your own architecture of forgiveness, subscribe to Women Reddit Stories right now. There are more stories like this waiting. Tell me in the comments. Would you have opened the door? My name is Dr. Alana Reyes. I'm 33 years old. And I am, carefully and deliberately, allowing myself to be someone's daughter again. 4 plates. It's a start.